But let's go ahead and get started on our virtual adventure for kids through the great state of Alaska. All right, love this picture of this little girl over by the glacier. Cool. So what and who is Austin Adventures? Let's start with that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Kasey Austin. Hello again, president of Austin Adventures. And did you know that I was actually born in the great state of Alaska? Who would have known? Not a lot of people know that about me. I live in Montana, but that is where I was born, and I lived there until I was 5 years old. Yeah, so I do love the great state of Alaska because it is very near and dear to my heart. Okay, so back to Austin Adventures. Our company creates guided active vacations for families just like yours. And these are vacations where you get to be active. You go hiking and biking and rafting and horseback riding and fun things like that. And you get to sleep in nice hotels at night and eat a ton of delicious food during the day. Our company is family owned and operated, and I get to work alongside my mom and dad every single day. How crazy is that? Probably a lot like what you're experiencing if you are stuck at home with your own parents who are probably also working from home right now. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit in a nutshell about me. We're going to be embarking on these virtual adventures together on Thursdays at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time for the foreseeable future. So I hope you'll join us weekly if you enjoy what you're seeing today. Okay. So if you were able to join us last week on our first ever virtual adventure, we went to Yellowstone National Park. I think a lot of you who are on the webinar today also went to Yellowstone last week. So thank you so much for joining again if you did. We learned all about the history, the cool geology, and the wildlife in our world's first national park last week. So if you're missing out on that and you want to see what it was all about, you can go to our website and get on our Virtual Adventures for Kids page, and you can go watch that webinar online to see what you were missing, okay? So if you're interested in Yellowstone, go check it out. Awesome. Last week, you guys had some great questions. So we want to make sure we leave plenty of time today to cover all the things that you're wondering about Alaska. So let's go ahead and get started. And remember, if you do have any questions, please just type them into the Q&A box, and I'll pick a few of my favorites to answer towards the end of this adventure. Okay. Cool. So where are we going today, people? We are going to Alaska. Woohoo! Alaska is called the land of the midnight sun. How romantic sounding. What a name, right? I bet you're wondering why Alaska has this nickname. So Alaska is called the land of the midnight sun because for over 2 months in the summer, in the northernmost part of the state, the sun doesn't set at all. So it's still up at midnight. How cool is that? Can you imagine? It must be hard to go to sleep at night. What would you do with all that extra daylight? I mean, I'd be outside playing all day, I can tell you that much. So on our adventure today, we'll start off by going over some fun facts about this amazing state. We'll also explore one of Alaska's 8 national parks, Kenai Fjords National Park, and learn about what I think is one of this place's most fascinating features, its glaciers. Okay? And last but not least, we're going to discover some of the most amazing local activities and check out Alaska's wildlife that inhabit both the land and the sea. Okay, so before we start, I want to know, what are some things you, all of you out there, already know about Alaska? So if you know any cool fun facts, maybe type them into the Q&A, tell someone that you're with, maybe you're watching this with a sibling or a parent. So maybe just say one thing that you know about Alaska. I'm just curious kind of what kind of level I'm dealing with here. Who knows what, and maybe you've heard of this really neat state before. So let's see if any of you know anything here, okay? Cool, Alaska is the biggest state. All right, they have gold. It's cold. I love all these answers coming in. It might be the 49th or 50th state, we're not really sure, okay. Northern Lights, you know nothing about Alaska. Okay, perfect. A lot of different animals live there. It's really cold, many whales live in Alaska. It's the largest state, they have glaciers. It's currently 28 degrees apparently in Alaska, that's good to know. Canada is attached. Wow, lots of great answers on here, guys. It's cold. Everyone knows that Alaska is a really cold place. I've seen that answer come in probably 50 times. The Iditarod race, cool. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. Not many people live there. Awesome. Has clean air. Nothing, I'm 5 years old. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. That's fine. Snowy mountains. It's really cold near the glaciers. Juneau is the capital. Nice one, cool. Awesome. It's home to the biggest national park. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that today. Very cool, it's really beautiful. I totally agree. Nice, these are awesome, awesome facts that you guys are coming up with. We have a lot of good stuff coming in. So I'm going to move on past those because there literally are like 8 million facts coming in. I could keep reading them all day. But let's just dive into a few fun facts now about Alaska that are some of my favorites, okay? So looking at this picture of the Northern Lights in Alaska, do you think this is something you'd be able to see in the summertime? If you said no, you're correct. Remember, it's light outside nearly 24 hours a day in the summer. So it has to be dark out to have this kind of solar activity taking place, which means that it has to be winter time. That's when it's darkest in Alaska. So that's the best time that you'll be able to see the Northern Lights. That's just kind of a cool fun fact for you. Okay, so let's learn a little bit about these guys on this screen. Did you know that Alaska's name is based on the Eskimo word Alakshak, meaning great lands or peninsula? The Inuit are one of many groups of First Nations people who live in Alaska, and they're sometimes called Eskimos. Maybe you've heard of Inuits or Eskimos before, right? And a few fun facts about the Inuit for you. The Inuit ate both raw and cooked meat and fish, and whale blubber was burned as fuel for cooking in lamps. And Inuit were also nomads, meaning they were they were constantly on the move. Okay, but they did not domesticate any animals except for dogs, which they used to pull their sleds and help with the hunting. Okay, and they were hunters and gatherers. They lived off the land. They're very careful to make good use of every part of any animal that they killed. Okay, they didn't let anything go to waste. And respect for the land and the animals they harvested was and is a very important part of their culture still today. Very respectable people. All right, this slide is pretty darn cool, I think. So you'll see all these different states in the state of Alaska. It's just a good visual. So Alaska is the United States' largest state. I saw a lot of those facts coming in from a lot of you saying that you knew that already. That's awesome. Did you know it's over twice the size of our second largest state, Texas? How crazy is that? In fact, if you take some of the other states in the United States, you can fit 19 states into Alaska. And this map is showing just that. And it's not just the smaller states either. It's states like Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. They can all fit in Alaska with room to spare. So you can see there are 19 states that can fit in Alaska. That is amazing. But as you might suspect, much of this huge state is virtually uninhabited, meaning not a whole lot of people live there. Alaska is the 47th most populated state in the US, and there aren't even 1 million people that live in the biggest state. How crazy is that, right? Compare that to the 8 million people living in New York City alone. There's a lot of space in Alaska for people to spread out. Awesome, so this is Alaska's state flag that we're showing here, and did you know that it was actually designed by a 13-year-old boy named Benny Benson? He's around the same age as some of you on this webinar, including Lucy, who just turned 13 today, woohoo! And the story was, in the year 1926, students from the Alaska Territory were asked to submit their ideas for a flag design. And Benny's idea, this little kid in the corner here of the picture, he was declared the winner. And he received a $1,000 scholarship for his efforts and a watch for winning the flag design contest. That's pretty fun. So what this flag means basically is the blue color of the flag represents the sky, the sea, and the mountain lakes, as well as Alaska's wildflowers. And you'll also see the biggest star in the upper right corner is the North Star, representing that Alaska is the northernmost state. And the other 7 smaller stars make up the Big Dipper constellation. Maybe you've seen that yourself in the sky at some point, the Big Dipper. And this symbolizes a bear, and therefore strength. All right, Alaska's a strong state. Cool. Okay, so let's try to figure out what kind of slick facts we can come up with for oil. Wink. All right, that was pretty cheesy, but did you know that oil is Alaska's most valuable resource? The oil and gas industry accounts for 1/3 of all Alaskan jobs. In other words, 1 out of 3 people have a job in oil and gas in Alaska. Okay, so what is oil anyway? This is a term that gets thrown around all the time, but do we really know what it is? Especially as kids. Crude oil is found deep under the Earth's surface, and it's been there for millions of years. It's actually formed by fossilized plants and animal matter. Oil is also found deep in the ocean floor, but it's more difficult to get at. Our lives would be so different if we didn't have oil, as it's used in many different products that you and I both use all the time. Of course, there's the more obvious use, which is when crude oil is refined into gasoline and fuel for our transportation. Our planes, trains, and automobiles have to have fuel, right? So that's one use for crude oil. But oil is also used in medicine, makeup, paint, pens, clothing, plastic bottles, pretty much any plastic material that we use. And we use a lot of plastic in our day-to-day lives, don't we? Alaska oil production accounts for 25% of the oil produced in the United States alone. And the state is home to what is thought to be the largest oil field in North America. Let's see. Lindsay, I totally see you on there, by the way. I care about you, girl. She says, please say something to me. All right, let's talk a little bit about fishing in Alaska. Did you know that the fishing and seafood industry is Alaska's largest private industry employer? Most of America's salmon, crab, halibut, and herring come from Alaska. So the scale of Alaska's commercial fisheries are truly extraordinary. The industry catches and processes enough seafood every year to feed everybody in the world at least 1 serving of Alaska seafood. Everyone in the world, that's billions of people, wow, okay? All right, so if we're looking at things on American terms, Alaska's commercial fisheries could provide 1 serving of seafood every day for every American for more than a month. That's amazing, right? There's over 300 million people in the US. Someone give me the calculation for 30 million times 30 days. That's like 900 million servings of seafood that Alaska could provide to the American population. Wow, that's a lot of seafood coming out of Alaska. All right, and did you also know that Alaska is home to over half of the parklands, preserves, and wildlife refuges in the United States? You can see all of the national parks and preserves in green and yellow on the map that you're looking at, okay? So also, you see Denali there in the middle of the map, Denali National Park. That park is home to North America's tallest mountain, Mount Denali, at 20,308 feet. Pretty cool, huh? And did you also know that Alaska is home to the most glaciers in the nation? About 29,000 square miles of Alaska are covered by glaciers. That's amazing. All right, awesome, guys. So, looks like there's still lots of really great questions coming in here. Keep them coming, people. Let's see, hopefully you've learned some really cool new things about Alaska so far. We still have a long way to go, but I just wanted to do a quick check-in. We're not gonna do a poll yet, but in the Q&A box, I just want you to type 1 new thing you've learned so far, and I'll call a few of you out by name with your awesome comments, okay? So if you can think of anything you've learned so far, let's see. Oh, Tara hasn't learned anything yet. Sorry, Tara. We learned that Alaska has the most glaciers. Nice, Laura. They have enough fish to feed America for 30 days. That's true. 1 serving apiece. Has the tallest mountain. 19 states can fit in Alaska. Oh, sorry, I forget to call out your names. Tallest mountain was from Trusha? And 19 states can fit in Alaska. That's from Michelle. Cool. That there's a lot of seafood from Stephanie. I learned about oil. Lexa said that. Okay. The Inuit eat raw and cooked fish from Sarah. They have a lot of fish from Elizabeth and David. Both have that answer. Cool. It's the largest state from Kipton and Brody in Washington. Nice. Okay. Cool. Sun for 24 hours? Yep. Awesome. Thank you all. So let's keep moving along here, okay? Good job. I can tell you're definitely following along. So let's dive into Alaska's national parks. So last week with our virtual adventure to Yellowstone, we talked about the importance of national parks. So remember how we talked about what a national park is? So a national park is an area that's really beautiful or historically important. And it's land that's protected by the federal government for you to enjoy or protect wildlife, or both, right? A national park is preserved as is, meaning that if you visit a place like Yellowstone National Park this summer, it should look the same as when your grandparents visited it about 60 years ago, maybe. And it's going to look about the same if your kids visit someday, maybe 30 years from now, okay? So it should be preserved as is. And we have 62 national parks all across the United States. Did you know, though, that Alaska is home to 8 of those 62 national parks, including the nation's largest national park, which is called Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve? I did see that some of you said that you knew that the biggest national park was in Alaska. Nice job. And at 13.2 million acres, it's bigger than Yellowstone National Park, Yosemite National Park, and the country of Switzerland combined. It's huge. Actually, Alaska has 7 of the 10 biggest national parks in the entire United States. And I guess when you have all that room up there and not a lot of people, you have lots of really big national parks, which is really, really cool. Okay, so to see some of Alaska's national parks, we've got to hop into our seaplane to get there. So everyone climb in, get in your plane. We're gonna buckle up and we're gonna watch this really cool seaplane video, okay? Cool. What an amazing ride that was, huh? Thanks for riding along with me in my seaplane. I saw that a lot of you were commenting that that was really loud at the beginning, so sorry it was so loud, but it's probably about as loud as it being in an actual seaplane, right? Those are really loud planes. And I see that a lot of you have been in a float plane before. That's really, really cool. Okay, so those views were incredible, right? Did you know that many people who make their homes in small towns all over Alaska actually rely on seaplanes as their only connection to the outside world? Isn't that crazy? It's how their groceries and their supplies and the mail get delivered. So they can't just go to any of those places. They have to have it flown in. And it's how people travel out for basic needs like going to college or doctor visits or business trips or just like a family reunion or something like that. In fact, the state capital of Alaska, I know some of you knew that one, it's Juneau, right? That doesn't even have any roads in or out. You can only access Juneau, the state capital, by by plane or boat, okay? No roads going into Juneau. All right, so now I want you to imagine that we're still taking a ride in our seaplane, and what do you think some of the animals are gonna be that we're gonna see up here? if you can think of any animals we might see from our seaplane, type them into the Q&A now. All right, so I'm going to take my binoculars out. I'm looking around for some animals. What am I going to see here? All right, what do you think lives here? Some moose? Yeah, that's a great one, okay? We got moose. Anders thinks maybe we might see some elk. Katie is thinking bears. Awesome. Oh, a lot of people are saying bears. Tony, Beck, awesome. Jackson, maybe an orca. Okay, cool. Wolves. Kate thinks wolves and bears. Elk, deer. Awesome. So a lot of you know a lot of the different animals that live in Alaska. Let's look at a few that might be in Alaska in this video, okay? Cool. So those are just a few of Alaska's animals that we might see when we're going around in our seaplane, okay? So let's talk now maybe about a few more of my favorites. Oh man, look at this cool guy. This is a caribou. And yes, they can be found in Alaska. So I'm just going to share a few of my favorite fun facts about these guys, okay? So fun fact number 1, caribou are mainly found in the northern regions of North America, like up in Alaska, but they can also be found in Northern Europe and Asia. However, they're usually referenced as reindeer there. And who's all of your favorite reindeer? Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, right? All right, so usually they're referred to as reindeer in Europe and Asia. In Alaska, they're caribou, but they're pretty much the same animal, okay? And so fun fact number 2, caribou are the only deer species in which males and females both have antlers, all right? So those of us who live down in the lower 48 and we see deer all the time, probably remember seeing like a female deer who doesn't have antlers, the male does. That's not the case with caribou. Both males and females have antlers, which is pretty cool. Fun fact number 3, caribou spend the summer months feeding on the grasses and plants of the tundra, and they can eat about 12 pounds of food each day. Just one caribou. That's a lot of food in one day, especially when it comes to just grass. And fun fact number 4, caribou are classified as vulnerable to extinction, which is one step above endangered. Because they're migratory, meaning they move around from place to place following food and the changes in the weather and things like that, changes to the landscape can be especially disruptive to them. So an example of this might be maybe if a human puts a road into their migration route, that could block access to their summer feeding grounds. Okay, that's not good. And climate change is also a threat to them. As the Arctic warms, they become more susceptible to diseases and parasites, which could quickly spread through a herd. And I just love caribou. I hope that they get the protection they need so they can survive up there in Alaska. Caribou are so cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about polar bears. All right, so a few of my favorite fun facts here. Fun fact number 1, polar bears are classified as marine mammals because they spend most of their lives on the sea ice of the Arctic Ocean. And this is where they hunt for seals for their food. Did you know that polar bears spend 50% of their time hunting for food? That's a lot of their time. Polar bears have an excellent sense of smell. They can detect a seal about a mile away with their sniffer, all right? So they are definitely out there hunting those seals. Fun fact number 2, an adult male may reach over 10 feet tall when standing on its hind legs. I myself am just over 5 feet tall. So that would be like if there were 2 of me and Kasey number 2 was standing on top of my head. I'd be about the same height as a polar bear standing on its hind legs. Ooh, that's really tall. Fun fact number 3, polar bears have black skin. And although their fur appears white, it's actually transparent or see-through. Polar bears keep warm thanks to over 3 inches, about that much, of blubber under the skin. So you know, no wonder they stay so warm when they're swimming through the freezing cold sea in search of food. They have 3 inches of blubber protecting them. And fun fact number 4, polar bears are excellent swimmers. They can sustain a pace of 6 miles an hour by paddling with their front paws and holding their back legs out behind them, straight out behind them like a rudder. They just use that to control where they're going with their back legs, and they use their front as the motor, okay? And fact number 5, polar bears are protected under the Endangered Species Act because of ongoing and potential loss of their sea ice habitat resulting from climate change. And polar bears depend on sea ice so they can stop and take a break from all that swimming around looking for food. They need somewhere to stop, right? So I'm glad polar bears are protected under the Endangered Species Act so we can make sure this species stays around for a long time. All right, oh, look at this little guy. Let's get out those binoculars. He's hiding really well and he blends in with the snow. It's an Arctic fox, cool. Let's learn a few facts about this guy. Fun fact number 1, a fully grown Arctic fox weighs between 6 to 17 pounds. That's pretty tiny, and on a dog weight scale, that lies somewhere between the weight of a Chihuahua and the weight of a beagle, if you've ever seen those 2 types of dogs and know how heavy they are. Fun fact number 2, Arctic foxes have beautiful white coats, and they act as very effective winter camouflage against that snow. They blend in really well with the white snow of the Arctic tundra. So when the seasons change, the fox's coat changes color as well to a brownish gray color that blends in with the tundra's rocks and plants after the snow melts. So that's a pretty cool adaptation, right? Fun fact number 3 is an Arctic fox is an incredibly hardy animal that can survive frigid Arctic temperatures as low as -58 degrees Fahrenheit. Brr! This type of fox lives in a burrow, and during a blizzard, an Arctic fox may make a tunnel into the snow to create shelter from a winter storm. And then my last fun fact for this little guy, fun fact number 4, Arctic foxes are omnivorous, meaning they eat both plants and meat. That's what being an omnivore means, okay? In summer, Arctic foxes feed primarily on small mammals. Foxes denning near the ocean often depend heavily on nesting seabirds as their food source. And Arctic foxes will also eat berries and eggs and scavenge the remains of other animals. They sometimes even feed on the remains of seals killed by polar bears. Cool. All right, everyone. We have arrived at our first check-in, and I am going to start our first poll here. And our first poll is on land mammals. A poll is basically a quiz. So hopefully you can see this right now. When I was testing this out earlier, we were having a little bit of trouble with the poll. So if for some reason you can't see this, I'll read out the questions and you can type your answer into the Q&A box, okay? So my first question is, are Arctic foxes herbivores, carnivores, or omnivores? All right, so are we thinking an Arctic fox is an herbivore, a carnivore, or an omnivore? And remember, an herbivore only eats plants, a carnivore only eats meat, and an omnivore eats both, okay? And let's go on to the next one, true or false? Polar bears are excellent swimmers. Is that true or false? Either answer the poll, or if you don't see the poll for whatever reason, go ahead and type your answer into the Q&A. And number 3, what is one example of a change in the landscape that might threaten a caribou? Would it be disease spreading through a caribou herd? Would it be a road built in the middle of a caribou's migration route? Or would it be a bear taking over a caribou's territory? Which one of those would be a change in the landscape that might threaten a caribou? Nice job, guys. All right, it looks like a lot of your answers are coming in. The poll must be working for quite a few of you, so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna give you about 10 more seconds here to answer all 3 questions, and then I'll close the poll. All right, good job, everyone. I see a lot of you are done. I see a lot of you saying that you guys are omnivores. That's very true. All right, so I'm gonna end the poll here. And let's see here if I can share our results. So it looks like a lot of us did answer that yes, Arctic foxes are omnivores. Good job, you were listening. Nice work. And I asked true or false, are polar bears good swimmers? And the answer was true. A polar bear can swim for a long, long time, and it can swim about 6 miles per hour, which is actually pretty fast for swimming. And I asked, what is one example of a change in the landscape that might threaten a caribou? And the answer was a road built in the middle of a caribou's migration route. So nice job to all of you who got those questions right. You were listening. All right, so I'll stop sharing those poll results, and we are going to move on to the next section here. All right, so awesome. We got to see quite a few land mammals while we were flying around in our seaplane, remember, above Alaska's different national parks. So now we're going to zoom on into my favorite Alaska National Park, Kenai Fjords National Park. And you know what, guys? One of the best ways to explore Kenai Fjords Park is by water. So now that we've landed in our plane, let's hop into a sea kayak. I need you to sit down, extend your legs out in front of you, and grab a paddle. Let's get moving. Awesome. What a fun kayaking video. I somehow made an appearance in there. Amazing. Yes, and this is what I'm holding right now, a kayak paddle, for any of you that are wondering. But this is what you would use. This is kind of a short version that we tied together, but this is what you would use to kayak around in a bay in Alaska, okay? So let me set that down really quick. And, oh, I didn't tell you to bring your paddle. Sorry, Dana. You should have brought your paddle. I love it. You guys are too funny. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Kenai Fjords National Park. So Kenai Fjords is a national park that was established in the year 1980. It's located along the southern coast of Alaska where the land meets the sea. And the closest town is called Seward. So maybe you've heard of that little tiny town in Alaska. This park has a wide variety of landscapes, but it was mostly formed by glaciers, earthquakes, and ocean storms, and covers an area of nearly 700,000 acres. And today, nearly 56% of the park is covered in ice. That's more than half of the park. 56% is covered in ice. Kenai Fjords is home to the largest ice field in the United States. It has a diverse marine and land wildlife, and it's best seen by foot or by boat. Okay, or even by plane, I guess. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the Harding Ice Field. This is really cool. See that picture right there? That is the Harding Ice Field. It's the largest feature within Kenai Fjords National Park, and it covers over half of the park. And what is an ice field, you might be asking? Well, an ice field is basically a large area of interconnected glaciers. We'll talk more about what a glacier is in a few minutes, but basically what you're looking at right here is a glacier, and a glacier is part of an ice field, okay? So the Harding Ice Field, which is the one that we're looking at right here, is approximately 50 miles across at the longest point and 20 miles wide across the widest point. And there are at least 38 glaciers that flow from the Harding Ice Field. And even though the Harding Ice Field receives over 400 inches of snow each year, it's actually shrinking due to climate change. Pretty wild. Oh, I see someone just asked what a fjord is. We're gonna cover that on this screen. Thanks for asking. Okay, so what is a fjord? And yes, this is a really weird word. You don't normally see two consonants together like this, an F and a J. That's a pretty odd combination, right? This strange word is pronounced fjord, kind of like an F-Y sound. Can you say it with me? Fjord. Say it out loud. Fjord, fjord, fjord. All right, so back to what is a fjord? A fjord is a glacially carved U-shaped valley that is now filled with seawater. And this is a great example of a fjord in this photo. So see the glacier way back at the back of the valley? It used to be way bigger than this, and it likely took up most of this valley at one time, okay? Carved it into a nice big U shape. And as the glacier ice melted away, the sea level rose up, and the bottom of the valley is now filled with that rising seawater. And when that valley is filled in with seawater, that creates what's called a fjord, okay? That's pretty neat, isn't it? And just like the name implies, Kenai Fjords National Park, there are many fjords in Kenai Fjords National Park. Pretty cool. Let's paddle a little closer to get a look at a glacier close-up. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what a glacier is. So glaciers are huge, thick masses of ice, okay? They form when lots of snow falls in one location for many years. Over a long period of time, often hundreds of years, the snow on the bottom gets squished down by the weight of falling new snow. And this compressed snow becomes solid ice, which forms a glacier. And glaciers look like they're sitting still, but they're actually moving, which is really wild. The glacier's own weight causes it to move slowly downhill, sort of like a very slow moving river, okay? And some glaciers move a few feet a year, and others move a few feet per day. If you were standing next to it, you probably wouldn't really notice it moving, but over time, over years, you would definitely see how it's left its mark behind and how it maybe is retreating or coming forward, okay? And my last cool fact, maybe you guys have some water near you like I do. Glaciers hold a lot of fresh water. In fact, they hold nearly 70% of the world's fresh water. And that water that you might have in your glass or that I might have in my water bottle actually might have once been inside a glacier, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about two different types of glaciers we'll find in Kenai Fjords National Park. This first one is called a valley glacier. So a valley glacier is a large flowing river of ice that moves down through a valley under its own weight. It almost looks like a giant tongue. Valley glaciers may be very long and often originate from an ice field. Remember when we talked about ice fields earlier? A large area of interconnected glaciers? That's what an ice field is. So a glacier moves down off of an ice field into different directions. So Exit Glacier, which is the one pictured here, is in Kenai Fjords National Park, and it's a great example of a valley glacier, and it's the only glacier in the park that is accessible by land. Exit Glacier flows downward from the Harding ice field, and it's rapidly retreating due to climate change. So that's our first type of glacier, is a valley glacier. All right, so we just talked about what a valley glacier was. Now I want to talk about a different type of glacier, a tidewater glacier. So tidewater glaciers are glaciers that flow into the ocean. And tidewater glaciers end abruptly. See how that glacier just ends? It doesn't kind of peter out over time, it just stops at the ocean. The face of a tidewater glacier is constantly undercut by the sea, causing large chunks of ice to fall off the glacier into the ocean. And these pieces of glacier that fall into the water are called icebergs. Look how many little icebergs are floating around in this picture. Pretty cool, huh? When a chunk of ice falls off a glacier, it's called calving. Kind of like a cow has a calf when it gives birth, a tidewater glacier calves an iceberg. How sweet. So Holgate Glacier, also located in Kenai Fjords National Park, and pictured on this slide, is a great example of a tidewater glacier. See how it ends abruptly right into the ocean? Holgate Glacier also flows downward from the Harding ice field, the same ice field that Exit Glacier, the valley glacier from the last slide, originated from. Pretty cool, huh? Awesome. Oh man, guys, I think I see a tidewater glacier calving. Should we watch this together and see what a calving glacier looks like? Wow, that last one, that glacier calving was pretty intense. I think we got a little bit too close in our kayaks there. What do you think? All right, guys, we are back to a second poll here. I'm gonna launch this for you all. Let's see, we got number 2. I'm gonna launch this poll on glaciers and fjords. You should be seeing it here now. If you don't, I'm gonna read the questions out loud and you can answer the questions in the Q&A box, okay? So first question is, which type of glacier flows into the ocean? Is it a valley glacier or a tidewater glacier? Which one is going into the ocean? All right, and the second question is, what is a fjord? Is it a deep gorge with a river flowing through it? Is it a glacially carved valley that is now filled with seawater? Is it a large steep hill? Or is it a piece of land surrounded by water? Cool. So we have a bunch of questions coming in or a bunch of answers coming in from the first one. Awesome. So the second one, what is a fjord? And then our third question is, when a glacier calves, what do we call the chunks of ice that fall off the glacier into the ocean? Is it a valley glacier? Is it an iceberg? Is it a tidewater glacier? Or is it an ice cube? Lots of great responses coming in here, guys. Wow. Seeing a lot of great answers. Cool. So I am going to end our polling here. It looks like a few of you can't see it for some reason or other. Sorry about that. But we will just quickly go over the answers together. Okay, so it looks like which type of glacier flows into the ocean? The answer to that question was a tidewater glacier. Looks like most of you got that one right. Awesome. And what is a fjord? We went over this one quite in detail, but it is a glacially carved valley that is now filled with seawater. Nice job. And number 3, when a glacier calves, what do we call the chunks of ice that fall off the glacier into the ocean? The answer to that one is icebergs. We call those ones icebergs. Looks like a lot of you got that right as well. Good job, everyone. So I'm going to close out of that poll, and we are going to move on. Thanks to all of you who are participating. This is awesome. All right, so let's grab those paddles again and get out there to find some sea animals. Oh, what's that ahead? A whale? Let's check out this video. Those are some pretty cute sea animals, huh? All right, so let's just go over a few facts on whales, one of my favorite mammals in Kenai Fjords National Park, and something you can see all around the coastline of Alaska. So here's just a few fun facts. So fun fact number 1, there are 8 different types of whales in Alaska. They're the beluga, the blue, the bowhead, the gray, the humpback, the orca, the minke, and the sperm. So we got 8 different kinds of whales in Alaska. The most common whales that you might see whale watching from a boat in Alaska are orca whales and humpback whales, okay? But you can see any of them depending on the time of year. And fun fact number 2, like all mammals, whales breathe air into lungs, they're warm-blooded, they breastfeed their young, and they have some, although very little, hair, okay? Fun fact number 3, whales breathe through blowholes located on the top of their head. I'm sure all of you guys have seen this in videos before, or maybe in person, if you've been lucky enough to see a whale. And a blowhole on a whale is basically just like a human nostril. Just like you and I breathe out of our nose, a whale breathes out of its blowhole on top of its head. Can you imagine if we had a nose on top of our head? How weird would that be? How would we wear sunglasses? These are the questions of the world I think about at night. All right, and number 4 fun fact is whales have a unique respiratory system that lets them stay underwater for long periods of time without taking in oxygen. And some whales, such as the sperm whale, can stay underwater for up to 2 hours holding a single breath. I don't know about you guys, but I can hardly hold my breath for 20 seconds, let alone 2 hours. That's amazing. All right, and let's learn a little bit more about these cute and cuddly little creatures called sea otters. So fun fact number 1 about sea otters I wanted to share is the sea otter is the largest member of the weasel family, but it's the smallest marine mammal. So largest weasel, smallest marine mammal, okay? And fun fact number 2, 90% of the world's sea otters live in coastal Alaska. So most of these cute little fuzzy guys are living along the coastline of Alaska, okay? That's the best place to see them. And number 3, sea otters like to eat sea urchins, crabs, clams, mussels, octopus, fish, and other marine invertebrates. Sea otters are one of the few animals to use tools, and they eat animals with shells like clams and abalone, and they use a stone to break open the shell. Pretty cool, huh? And sea otters have the densest hair coat of any mammal, with up to 1 million hairs per square inch. Their fur actually consists of 2 layers, an undercoat and longer guard hairs. And this system traps a layer of air next to their skin so their skin doesn't get wet, which is great because unlike many other marine mammals, sea otters do not have any blubber. That's another neat adaptation. So they have this unique 2-layered fur system to keep them warm, but no blubber. And now I'm going to change things up just a little bit. I know we were talking about sea mammals, but now I want to talk about one of my favorite sea birds, the puffin. They're so cool. So first of all, there are 2 different types of puffins in Alaska. The horned puffin, which is the one pictured here, and there's also one called the tufted puffin. And my fun fact number 2 is that a puffin weighs about the same as a can of Coca-Cola. That's tiny. It's just a little guy, right? That little can of Coca-Cola doesn't weigh much. And fun fact number 3, with wings that can or must flap 400 times a minute, puffins can cover up to 55 miles an hour. That's amazing. They can go really fast. Number 4, puffins lay just 1 egg per year, and usually with the same mate. And like some penguins, both parents take turns incubating the egg and caring for their 1 chick. So just 1 egg is laid a year, so they don't produce very quickly, do they? Puffins are super swimmers. With strong webbed feet for rudders, puffins can dive almost 200 feet. As they dive, they use their wings to flap underwater, giving them superb propulsion. And scientists say they're actually better at swimming than flying. Wow. All right, so we are gonna do our last check-in. I'm seeing a lot of, oh my gosh, those otters are so cute. I know, I just love them. They are so cute. All right, so let me start the 3rd poll, which is on sea animals. Okay, so it just started. A lot of you should be seeing it here. So first I'm gonna ask true or false. Whales are mammals who breathe out of their blowhole, very similar to how humans breathe out of their nose. Is that true or is that false? And number 2, true or false? A sea otter's layer of blubber keeps them warm in the frigid waters of the Pacific Ocean. Is that true or false? Their blubber, does that keep them warm? And number 3, how many eggs do puffins typically lay in 1 year? Is it 1 egg, 3 eggs, 12 eggs, or 40 eggs? All right, lots of good responses coming in. Awesome job, guys. Cool. Lots of great responses coming in. I'm watching them on the Q&A as well. Okay, so I'm going to end our polling here and just share my results. And it looks like, yes, it's true that whales are mammals who breathe out of their blowhole, very similar to how we breathe out of our nose. That one was true. And as for sea otters, the layer of blubber that keeps them warm in the frigid waters of the Pacific Ocean, they don't have a layer of blubber, so that one is actually false. They have that 2-hair coat system, okay? Those special hairs that keep them warm, but no blubber. And number 3, how many eggs do puffins typically lay in 1 year? Just 1 lonely egg. Good job. It looks like a lot of you got that one correct. All right, so we're gonna move on. We're almost done, guys, almost to the Q&A, which I know a lot of you are excited about. So this part won't take very long, so let's move through. So we just got done with our paddling, and man, I'm getting tired. Let's put our paddles down, okay? And so far, we've flown in our seaplane, we've paddled in a kayak, and now we're gonna get into another mode of transportation in Alaska, which is by dog sled. So let's learn a little bit more about dog sledding. So dog mushing was dubbed the official sport of Alaska in 1972, all right? And as for a quick history of dog sledding in Alaska, for hundreds of years, Alaska natives used dogs to help with hunting, for protection from Alaska's wild animals, and for travel. So later, when gold brought settlers to the state at the end of the 1800s, dog sledding was used as a way to scope out routes around the area, deliver mail, and transport people between remote mining camps. And dog mushing actually hit the national radar in 1925 when a diphtheria outbreak, a type of infection, threatened to extinguish the village of Nome. And a series of dog sled teams were tasked with carrying a life-saving serum nearly 700 miles. And that event helped inspire the current Iditarod race, as well as oodles of blockbuster movies. Maybe you've seen Balto? That's a pretty famous one. The Iditarod, which is now a dog sled race, covers 1,000 miles across Alaska. And the slowest winning time was 20 days back in 1974. But now the race has gotten considerably faster with new technology. And the winning musher now takes roughly 8 days to finish the Iditarod. 1,000 miles in 8 days by dog sled. That's amazing. So sled dog team members are separated into 4 categories based on their position. Each sled dog team has a lead dog, or sometimes 2, like in this picture. And these lead dogs are fast and intelligent, and they must be able to set the pace and direct the team effectively, okay? And directly behind the lead dogs are swing dogs, who help swing the team in the turns or the curves. And then the dogs at the very back of the sled, closest to the sled, those are the wheel dogs. And they are typically the largest and strongest dogs of the group. And their job is to pull the sled out and around corners or trees. And finally, the remaining dogs in the middle are known as team dogs. And the number of team dogs depends on the size of the sled dog team. And more team dogs means more dog power, all right? And last but not least, the person on the sled is called the musher. Mush. All right, so let's bundle up and hop on this dog sled ride. These dogs are going to take us to a campfire where we can warm up a little bit, and you'll have time to ask any remaining questions you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you. Nice, we made it through. Look at these weird goggles I found in my basement that I don't think I've ever worn in my life. I love them. Anyway, they're great for dog sledding. Kept my face nice and warm. All right, so wow, that was a lot of fun, you guys. I didn't know we'd go that fast on a dog sled. Did you? We learned so much on our adventure today. We discovered some history and fun facts, and we learned about animals by land and water. We visited Kenai Fjords National Park. We learned a lot about glaciers, and we got to ride on a dog sled. So you must have so many questions. If you have any, I've been kind of picking out a few as we've gone along that I've just set aside. So if you have any, then go ahead and ask them now, or I'm going to ask or answer a few that I've seen come in from before. Okay. So the first one that I saw come in that I kind of liked way back when was, are orcas the same thing as killer whales? And the answer is yes. Orcas and killer whales are the same. And they're just commonly known as either or, right? A killer whale, I think, kind of makes it sound a little scarier. So I don't usually use that terminology. They don't typically kill humans, but they are killers of the sea. They definitely can take down other whales. They can take down sea lions, other big mammals and things like that. So historically, they were called killer whales because they can be pretty vicious, but they're pretty friendly around humans for the most part. All right, so that one was from John. Thank you for that question, John. All right, so it looks like Carly asked, can you go dog sledding in the summertime? That's a good question. So yes, depends on where you're at. Basically, you just need to have snow. Although I guess you can technically dog sled on like a wagon type thing that has wheels, and then you could practice your dog sledding in the summertime. But you can also fly into a glacier and you can go dog sledding on a glacier. I know they do that a lot in Alaska. So yes, you can go dog sledding year round, depending on where you're at. Thank you for that question. All right, so we looked at the Harding ice field earlier. It looks like Luke asked, can you walk on the glaciers of the Harding ice field? That's a really good question. And yes, you can walk on glaciers and you can walk on the Harding ice field, but I don't think you're supposed to go do it yourself. Glaciers are actually pretty dangerous. They have things that are called crevasses, which are really deep holes in the glacier, where if you're not paying attention, sometimes they're covered up by snow. You might fall into one and then you will not be able to get out again. So if you ever go walk on a glacier, you want to go with a trained professional guide who knows what they're doing on that glacier. Okay, and usually you wear like crampons, which are little spikes on your shoes. All right, so good question there. And let's see where, okay, so I see Katie is asking, where's the best place to see bears in Alaska? Oh gosh, bears in Alaska, literally everywhere. You can just go and see bears in the cities of Alaska. They're wandering around the street sometimes. Wildlife is very rampant in Alaska. Moose, deer, bears, you can see them even in the cities sometimes, just kind of walking around in the parks and things like that. But really, I mean, if you just go on a hike somewhere in the mountains, you'll definitely, or I guess very likely might come across a black bear or a grizzly bear or something like that. You have to go a lot further north though to see the polar bears in Alaska. So there's the 3 different types of bears there: polar bears, grizzly or brown bears, and black bears. Okay. Nice. Good questions. Good questions. Keep them coming. All right. So I'm just going to answer a couple more here, guys, because we're already getting up. I think it's been like over an hour, which is crazy. This has taken me a bit longer than I thought. So I'm just going to answer a couple more questions. So do you guys do trips to Denali National Park? That's a good question. Denali National Park was the one with the tallest mountain in North America. And we don't really do trips there ourselves. We do trips in Kenai Fjords National Park with Austin Adventures, but we help a lot of people arrange tours to Denali. And it's something that's pretty easy to be able to go do on your own. You just take maybe the train up there. It's about an 8-hour train ride. You hop off, take a bus into the park. But it's a bit complicated, I guess, all of the transportation details that it requires to get to Denali. You can also drive there, but you can only go a certain distance into the park if you drive your own car. So yeah, anyway, if you want to know how to get in there, you're always welcome to call and we can talk you through it, but it's kind of how that works. And I guess, okay, 2 more questions here. It looks like Allison asked, how do you get to Alaska? I guess most of us are going to fly there, but you can drive. It's just a really long drive from Montana, where I live. If you just drive straight through, it takes like 6 days along what's called the Alcan, the Alaska-Canada Highway. You have to drive through Canada. No matter how you get to Alaska, you have to drive through Canada. So I don't think a lot of people actually drive that because it's just so far. It takes a long time. It's thousands of miles in your car. So it's just a lot easier to fly. It's actually a pretty easy flight anywhere in the United States. You might have to stop once or twice, but it's pretty simple. And I guess you could also take a boat. Maybe you stop in Washington or start in Washington and you take a ferry. Then you could get to Alaska that way. Okay. And the last question I'm going to answer looks like Cole sent this one in, is I've seen videos of kayaks flipping over because whales get too close. Does that happen often? I would say no. I've been in Alaska kayaking many times. It's actually really cool to actually see a whale when you're kayaking in Alaska. But to actually have one flip your kayak over, I think that's pretty rare. So if you're ever looking to go kayaking in Alaska, I would not worry about a whale flipping over your kayak. If anything, that would be a really crazy cool experience to be able to talk about forever, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right. So, oh shoot, you guys, I just remembered I was supposed to be flipping through all of these fun pictures while I was answering your questions. So now we're just going to look at them really, really quick. Okay. Look at all these fun kids hanging out in Alaska. I think there's only like 8 pictures, so we're just gonna quickly flip through these. All right, cool. So this is what I call our resources slide. If you guys loved this presentation today and you wanna learn a little bit more about Alaska, you can go check out some of these resources. And you're probably not gonna be able to click on them here, but once we get this webinar uploaded to our website, you'll be able to go back and review. You can go back and find these resources yourself. So there's a Junior Ranger Guide, which has some really fun activities. There's an Explorer Journal, if we have some older kids on here today that might wanna delve into a little bit more information on Kenai Fjords National Park, and some more Kenai Fjords resources, and also this cool National Park Service Glacier Experiment that you probably have the materials for at your house. So if you wanna learn a little bit about how glaciers work personally, you can go check that out, okay? And I've seen a lot of you asking where we're gonna go next week. This one's a little bit different. We're definitely embarking on these virtual adventures every Thursday, at least through April. So I hope you'll join me every Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And what's happening next week is we're gonna take a walk on the wild side at Zoo Montana virtually. And Jeff Ewelt, who's in charge of the zoo over at Zoo Montana here in Billings, he's gonna be our special guest. And he is absolutely hilarious. I just love him. And he's gonna be introducing to us a few of his favorite creatures, which is gonna be really, really fun. So you do not wanna miss that one. It's gonna be next Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And you can sign up by going to austinadventures.com, and you'll see a virtual adventures banner pop up right at the top of the page that you can click on to view previous virtual adventures, like our Yellowstone one or this Alaska one. And you can also register for future virtual adventures like our zoo adventure next week. All right, so thank you so much to everyone for coming. We really appreciate you joining us for our virtual adventure to Alaska today. And if you had a good time learning about Alaska, please don't hesitate to share with your friends. The more the merrier. There were hundreds of you on today, which is awesome, but we always want more kids on here, okay? And as for my closing comments, again, thanks to everyone who spent this time with me today learning all about our northernmost state, Alaska. And I hope these virtual adventures are getting you excited about the world we live in and all the neat places there are to explore out there. This coronavirus pandemic will come to an end at some point, and everyone is going to want to get out there and travel again. I'm sure of it. And Austin Adventures will be here when you're ready. So thanks to all you kids and parents that joined us today. You rock. See you at the zoo next week. And for now, I'll see you later. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next time.